What stage of the spiritual awakening are you in? I'm Jennifer DeVue, the Shadow Alchemist, your guide for spiritual and psychic development. And the stages of a spiritual awakening are not linear. They are different for each person. Sometimes we may feel like we're on a track and then suddenly find ourselves back at the beginning. And that's because the spiritual awakening journey, just like any journey of transformation, is not a line, but a spiral, ever spiraling inwards into the core, the most authentic, truest version of ourselves. And so lessons that we may feel like we have learned and mastered may come back again, but at a deeper level until they are mastered, until we reach that place where we can fully be in total allowance and acceptance and truth of ourselves, and all those layers of pretense and inauthenticity have finally fallen away. So these stages are not linear, but there are certain stages that we each seem to go through during our spiritual awakening. The place that we will tend to start is unconsciousness. And unconsciousness is that place where we are doing what we think we're supposed to do in life. We're just following our conditioning. And in this stage, we don't have the self-awareness to recognize how to change and transform our lives yet. Maybe we're not even interested in that at this stage. But unconsciousness is a place where you might find yourself lashing out or becoming defensive and then feel bad about it later, but feel like you don't have any control over it in the moment. In this stage, we are ruled by our thoughts and emotions, and we define ourselves based on our external identity, who we are to other people, or what job we have, these kinds of things. At this stage, we are fully entrenched in the idea that if we can get it right, if we can just do the right things and be good enough, then we will be happy and fulfilled. Which leads us into the next stage, which is disillusionment. And this is typically the place where we begin to recognize that maybe we're on a spiritual journey, maybe we're having an awakening, because suddenly everything that we thought we knew is challenged. There might be an ego death where we lose all of those external identifiers and find ourselves asking like, well, without the job or the degrees or the status, like, who am I? Who am I? Or it might be that we do get it right. We get to that place where we have all the things we were supposed to have, we've done everything the right way, and yet we find ourselves empty and unfulfilled, and we begin to ask, what else is there? There has to be more than this. This stage of disillusionment can be very painful because we're in this limbo where things that we thought mattered suddenly don't, but we haven't yet discovered what it is that does matter. We realize that we aren't who we thought we are, but we haven't yet discovered who we really are. And so we're in this kind of empty space, and that is what leads us into the seeking. Now, the stage of seeking is where we are actively consuming and looking for the answers, right? We're reading spiritual books, we're following spiritual teachers, we're watching videos, we're consuming content to try to make sense of that place we're at and try to find what is this more, this meaning, this fulfillment that I know is missing, and where can I begin to find it? Now, the next stage is in a way another version of disillusionment, and it's called the dark night of the soul. And this is the place we come to when we realize that the next class, the next course, the next book, the next relationship, the next meal cannot give us that fulfillment that we've been seeking. Things might start to make sense, and we might start to find some new understanding of the world and ourselves. But this emptiness persists as long as we are looking for fulfillment externally. The dark night of the soul is the moment where we realize that we have to turn inwards. When we've been on this track of doing what we're told and thinking, when I have the things and when I do the right things, then I can be happy and fulfilled, we become this black hole where nothing is ever enough. The dark night of the soul is where the universe and our very soul demands of us that we recognize that when we find and create that happiness, that fulfillment internally, then it can be manifest in the world around us. We have to be it first. We can't do it and then be it. You have to be it and then you do it naturally. So this is the space where we might find that now that we've gone through this disillusionment and these things that we thought mattered are falling out of our life, we begin to look inwards for what's next. This is where we find meditation, we find self-inquiry, and we begin to develop self-awareness and self-acceptance. This is where shadow work happens. It's when we turn inwards and we begin to question and challenge everything that we thought we knew and ask for the new understanding, not from somewhere else, but from inside. And epiphanies come from the dark night of the soul. So on the other side of the dark night of the soul is the stage of reawakening, in which truth and what is true for you individually, your truth, begins to emerge from that place of self-inquiry, not because someone else told you what the steps were, what the right answer was, but because you feel it and know it within. And that is when we can begin to recognize our purpose, which is the final stage. And this is the place where, because we have come inwards and begun to know ourselves, we now can re-emerge into the world and be ourselves in the world and learn how to integrate that and how to contribute and how to share ourselves in the world. Not coming from a place of needing the world to fulfill us, but bringing our fulfillment to the world. Now, typically, to get to that final stage, that purpose, will take many, many iterations of these other stages. Because once we come into that reawakening and we feel like we are coming into ourselves and we have epiphanies, and we have that sense of enlightenment and awakenment, what can happen is we think that we have the answer. And the moment that you think you have the answer, you've stopped that learning process. You've cut off possibilities. You've cut off the flow of the energy of the future of creation. The minute you're like, I figured it out. I know now. And that sense of I know now puts us back into a new level of unconsciousness that then we will find some disillusionment from. Something will wake us up to the fact that maybe I don't know, because I'm still not fully fulfilled. I'm still not fully living my purpose. I'm still not fully showing up as my true, authentic self in the world. And then that, again, the cycle of being the seeker, going inwards, reawakening. And eventually we get to the point where we have no other desire than to contribute to the world from that place of fulfillment, because we know that fulfillment itself is this journey of constantly recognizing that there is more to discover and seek and more epiphanies to uncover and then to share. And that becomes its own cycle on the other side of the spiritual awakening. Now, many of us can get trapped in that disillusionment or that dark night of the soul where we feel that emptiness, but we struggle to find what's next. So I have a few tips for you. If you feel like you're in any of these stages in your spiritual awakening, and the number one step that I can give to you is trust and surrender are, they're not valued in our world, because knowing the answer, having it figured out, and doing the right things, being the right way, are the highest values in our culture, in our society. But the spiritual awakening asks you to trust and surrender and follow your inner knowing, follow your intuition, follow that spark of truth that is in you. The only reason that we can know truth, when we hear it, when someone says something true, we know it's true because it resonates within us. And it resonates within us because that truth was already inside of you. And that is what we tap into when we stop trying to have the answer and we start listening and asking more questions. What is true for me? Where does happiness and fulfillment really come from? Who am I really? Asking those questions and then turning inwards for the awareness. Not the answer, which is static, which is concrete, which is one and done, but awareness, which is simply present. It is in this moment with no attachment that it's going to be the same in 10 seconds from now. Awareness, which is creation itself. It is energy that is moving, that is flowing. And when we can connect to pure awareness, we can know truth at each moment instead of having an answer, which cuts off all other possibilities. If you want to learn more about spiritual development and some of the gifts and psychic capacities that are waiting for you on the other side, then definitely check out some of my other videos, and I will see you around.